Can you imagine the feeling of walking through a wall and discovering that a living nightmare exists on the other side? Hold that image in your head, because Nancy Wheeler didn't have to imagine. She lived it. We know Nancy as Hawkins' perfect girl, perfect grades, bright future, the kind of person parents point to and tell their kids, be like her. But behind that facade of perfection was someone suffocating, someone who felt like the life planned for her was an invisible prison. And then her best friend disappeared. Barbara Holland. Barb. The girl nobody remembers, nobody really searched for, who became just another face on a missing poster. Barb was that friend who pulls you aside and asks if you're really sure about what you're redoing. The voice of reason we ignore when we want to do something stupid. Nancy ignored her that night, went to the party at Steve Harrington's house, left Barb alone outside, and when she came back to look for her friend, she found only silence. What nobody knew was that Barb had been dragged somewhere else, a place that shouldn't exist. The police didn't care. To them, she was just another teenager who ran away from home. The adults of Hawkins had this impressive ability to not see what was right in front of them. But Nancy couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. The guilt chewed her up inside like acid. And that's when she decided to do what nobody expected: investigate. Close your eyes for a second and try to feel what she felt. Your best friend vanished. Everyone tells you to move on, but you know, deep in your gut, that something terrible happened. What do you accept the comfortable version of the story or go after the truth even knowing it might destroy you? Nancy chose the truth. She started piecing things together. The Hawkins lab, the secret experiments, the children who had disappeared over the years. The more she dug, the more the quiet surface of that little town revealed deep cracks. And then she found Jonathan Byers. Jonathan was the opposite of everything Nancy knew. Quiet, strange, the kind of guy people like her were taught to avoid. But Jonathan was also looking for someone. His younger brother, Will, had disappeared the same night as Barb. 2 disappearances. One connection, and a discovery that would change everything. They found the passage in the tree behind the Byers' house. There was a rift, an opening that didn't lead anywhere in this world. The tree bark pulsed like it was alive. A sticky membrane covered the hole, moving slowly, breathing. Any normal person would have run, called for help, pretended they didn't see anything. Nancy shoved her hand into that thing, tried to process that. A 17-year-old girl without powers, without weapons, without any guarantee she'd come back, decided to cross through a dimensional rift because she needed to know what happened to her friend. That's not movie courage. That's desperation transformed into action. The upside down swallowed Nancy in an instant. And what she found on the other side can't be described with normal words. It was Hawkins, but it wasn't. The same streets, the same houses, the same trees, except everything was covered by a living darkness. Particles floated in the air like ashes from an eternal fire. The sky didn't exist, just a black, pulsing void. The ground was covered in organic matter, as if the entire world had been infected by something. And the silence, that heavy silence that seems to watch you. Nancy walked through that nightmare looking for signs of Barb. Every step echoed wrong. The temperature shifted between a cutting cold and a humid swamp heat. The air itself felt sticky, hard to breathe, and then she saw it. The creature moved through the shadows as if it were part of them. No face, no eyes, just that head that opened into petals of teeth. A perfect predator in a world made for hunting. Nancy froze, her heart beating so hard she was sure the thing could hear it. Every instinct in her body screamed to run, but run where? She was in the monster's territory. The moment you realize you're not the hunter, that you never were, that you've always been the prey, that moment changes a person forever. Nancy managed to escape, came back through the rift, was pulled back to our world by Jonathan. But she didn't come back the same. Something broke inside her during that crossing, and something new was born in its place. The good girl from Hawkins died in the Upside Down. What came back was a survivor. From that moment on, Nancy refused to be a victim, refused to be the girl who waits to be saved. She learned to shoot, learned to fight, and more importantly, learned that the truth is the only weapon that really matters. Because what Nancy discovered in that nightmare world wasn't just the existence of a monster. It was the existence of a very human conspiracy to hide those monsters. The Hawkins lab knew, the government knew, and they chose to sacrifice innocent people rather than admit their mistakes. Barb died because of that conspiracy, and Nancy swore the world would know. Years later, she still carried that mission. She became a journalist, not by accident, but by purpose. Every story she wrote, every truth she unearthed, was a way to honor the friend she lost, to ensure that silence wouldn't win. The most beautiful and tragic part of Nancy's journey is that she never got over the guilt. Not completely. She learned to transform that guilt into fuel, into a reason to keep fighting. But on silent nights, when she closes her eyes, she still sees Barb sitting on the edge of that pool, waiting for a friend who never came back to get her. You know what sets Nancy Wheeler apart from every other character in Stranger Things? Eleven has powers. Hopper has experience. Steve has strength. But Nancy only has determination, only has the absolute refusal to accept lies. And that, somehow, is scarier to those who want to hide the truth than any supernatural power. She crossed through the Upside Down unarmed and came back to tell the story, faced government agencies with a recorder hidden in her purse, looked into the eyes of monsters, both the literal and human ones, and did unlook away. Nancy Wheeler teaches us that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's being so scared you can barely breathe and still taking the next step. It's losing someone you love and transforming that loss into purpose. It's looking into the abyss and deciding the abyss won't silence you. She entered the Upside Down as a teenager carrying guilt. She came out as a warrior carrying truth. And maybe that is the greatest transformation of all. Discovering that the most dangerous monsters aren't the ones living in the shadows of other dimensions, but the ones sitting in well-lit offices deciding which lives are worth hiding. Now, answer me this. If you found out that everything you'd been told was a lie, would you have the courage to walk through the wall to find the truth, even knowing it might destroy you?